welcome to Timberborn. My name is Edik, and today we are starting a brand new playthrough of Timberborn's 1.0 release using the experimental branch. So if you're new to Timberborn, it is a city building game involving beavers, but what makes it really unique compared to other games of this type is that it involves water. You get to build all sorts of aqueducts, pipes, dams, and other waterworks to make sure your colony survives different droughts. So with that, let's jump right in. So for this playthrough, I'm going to start with the Folktales, the first race that you get to unlock. And for map, I'm going to jump down here over to Pressure. It's one of the new unconventional maps that they've got in this release, and I think it's going to show off some of the new features. I'm also looking for a more laid-back playthrough this time, so let's keep with normal. And for the name of this colony, I'm going to go with the Evergreen. I know this is going to be a big map, but hopefully we'll get a chance to turn everything here green by the time we're done with it. So first off, let's pause and let's get a lay of the land. Let's see what we've got here. This is quite a large map to work with. And already I see where the river starts and ends is not clear. And given the name of this map is Pressure, I'm going to guess that it probably involves pressurized water and pipes in some way. So let's take a look. I've never played this map before. I want to figure out where our water supply is coming from. So the first thing, let's take a look at the visible layers up here using the top right tool, and let's scan what we've got. Right away, I'm seeing what looks like an underground river of some type. And I see it's also blocked off by different blockages in different areas. So that's interesting. This looks like a bomb. That's something new in this game, but this is probably going to detonate at some point, and that means that we will lose our water. So with all this water, where is it actually coming from? Where is our source? See a bunch of dynamite everywhere. There we go. This is our source of water on the map. This seems to be where everything is coming from. And if we just move up from here, yes, I can see that connects to all sorts of different pipes in this map. This is going to be a really interesting map to play. And I can see here there's all sorts of ways this thing can go wrong. For example, look at this. We've got some blockages here with some bad water. If that were to ever break, right in here, this goes right into our good water supply. So that is interesting. Plus we've got another layer here. This whole thing is like a maze of tunnels. I'm looking forward to this. I think there should be some fun stuff here. And look at this. We got another bomb here with this bad water right in front of our colony. But all that said, we are still going to have to actually start this colony. So let's get going with that. First things that we will need are some water coming in, and we will need some food supply coming in as well. I'm not going to think too much about this setup to begin with, because we can always tear this stuff out later, and all of this stuff is cheap. But let's get some beavers building our pump for water, and somebody over here collecting some of these blueberries. We're also going to need somebody over here to start chopping down some trees. So we'll put down a lumberjack, and then we're just going to mark all of this with our cut trees option and just start grabbing a whole section here. So one of the things I like to do early in the game is I really want to rush getting a forester, just because I know I'm going to have to build stuff all the time during the game. So the soonest I can get to a renewable supply of trees is going to be best, especially since we don't have a lot of trees to work with here, and it's going to need sturdy science. So once we get this setup going, eyeing some science will be the next thing I'm going to look at. Now, this doesn't look like a lot of berries that are present there. So the other thing I'm going to be eyeing early on is probably throwing down a farmhouse. I know this is a haphazard mess, but let's start here. We're going to throw a farmhouse over here, and we're going to throw down some food. I like to eventually go to potatoes because you can cook them and get more potatoes, but I can't eat them yet. So probably the best bet right now is going to be carrots. Now, I'm coming through from a playthrough with the Iron Teeth, and I feel like their food situation is way more complex. So it's refreshing to be at the Folktale here, where we've got carrots, sunflower, potatoes, wheat, and bread. Very, very simple food. And immediately I'm seeing a couple things. One, we don't have a lot of water, so we're probably going to have to build another one of these water pumps early. The second thing is we're really limited by our lumberjack. So I'm going to throw down a second lumberjack since we've got some extra beavers here. Still sleeping on the ground. I'm going to live with that. But what I really do want to get a move on is getting a way to replace these trees. So let's immediately start rushing some inventors, or at least one of them. Now, I don't have enough workers to probably manage this. So once this is done, I don't think we need berries. I'm going to pause one of these and send one worker to over to the inventor hut. Here we go. We've already got some science coming in, and I think we only have to work our way up to the forester for 30 science. However, the big thing it also is going to need are planks. So planks are going to require us to refine the logs that we've got. The catch with planks in the lumber mill is that we're also going to need power. And just looking at this map, this is another challenge we've got with this map. Because we don't have a clearly defined water source, there is no moving water that I see here. Is there? Okay, there's a very, very small moving water coming through here through the pressure. So really, like one of the ways that we would normally get power is throwing down a water wheel. But look at this. Very little source of water here. Maybe 67 horsepower for one of these. That's quite sad. None over here. Nothing next to our production. That is going to be a problem. So early on, we are stuck working with these manual power wheels. So we are going to have some poor beaver sit there and power our lumber mill directly. Now, the other thing you'll notice I haven't done yet is I haven't expanded into storage. And that's because we don't have a bunch of food yet, and I probably could for water, but I'm going to see how far I can push it. I usually don't worry about storage too much early on because the small tanks are kind of junky anyways. They don't hold that much. But when we get closer to probably the first drought, or the first or second drought, I'm probably going to have to start building some. Other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the working hours a little bit. I don't have many amenities, so I'm not getting much happiness bonus with them just idling there anyways. So work out a little bit more time for them. Didn't take long. We've already got our science. I'm going to pause our inventor hut just temporarily, just so we can get people prioritized over here. Let's get a few of those planks going. So we've got some poor beaver over here manually powering the lumber mill. We're producing 1 plank every 1.3 hours, and we only need 7 of those planks to build a forester. So we've got a little bit of the production going. One thing we can do with a little bit of our excess logs is probably build a couple of lodges. And I'm anticipating having to move these later, so I'm not going to think again too hard about where this initial placement of Old Town is going to be. Let's put down 2 of them right here. Now the reason I'm doing this is eventually these beavers are going to die. And with the folktale, they repopulate based on available space in homes. I just want a minimum set of homes here in case anything happens that we will have some replacement population coming in. Now this is only going to support 6. We have 12 beavers. To grow the population, I'd have to start building a lot of homes. That's fine. We'll get to that later. Homes are in, but I did notice something nice. We've got our carrots starting to grow. Now, a certain amount of these carrots will be returned over to the farmhouse for storage. You can see we'll hold 50, but we are going to fill that up pretty soon. So I'm going to splurge, and we're going to add a little bit of storage over here for everything. So we're going to throw down in this very hodgepodge downtown area an extra storage for carrots. And at the same time, I think it is worth at this point, now that we've got a little bit more stuff coming in, let's add a little bit of storage for water. And we're going to keep that close to the pumps and the home. The other thing I'm going to throw in for an easy win early on is a fire pit. Now, the whole point of me doing this is to get the happiness bonus. I'm not expecting a big boost from it, but the happiness bonus over here that we get from well-being, that will give us a boost to some of their performance on the job. I also see that we have finally managed to collect the planks that we need. So let's go ahead and put down our forester. Now the forester, well, we're going to build it really quick now. I'm going to go straight to oak trees. Just because oak trees, when they grow, they're going to give me the most logs back. The downside I find early game is that it takes a while for the first harvest to come in. So the first harvest will be a little bit slow. Unlock that forester, plop it down, and then we are going to immediately start planting oak trees. And then as these pine trees get chopped down, we'll go ahead and just replace them with even more oaks. And for sure, make that our highest priority. We're on day 10. We've got a good establishment of everything we need. The next thing on my mind is trying to capture some of this water when the first drought comes. Now, I know we're on normal mode, so the first drought is going to be pretty tame. But what I'm thinking is when that drought hits, this water is going to continue to flow very slowly through here and eventually off the map. Anything I can do to retain that water so we have more time to pump will be ideal. So what I'm thinking a cheap win that we could do early on, especially since we only have one thing unlocked, is a dam. We could just build a really small dam here. Of course, I would like a road right here, but I decided to put my farm there. I hate to do this, but we're gonna shift everything over just ever so slightly. When I destroy something like this, I do get a portion of the resources back, and my understanding is I get 100% of the resources or like the food stored in it back. It's just the building resources I don't get 100% back. And it looks like we're just in time with this dam because I see that we've got our first drought about to come in 3 days. Really not worried either way if we finish it or not, just because I'm not expecting this first drought to be that bad. So ideally, I think we're going to make it, and within 3 days, we should have enough time to finish this up. Otherwise, how are we doing on our log supply? Well, not that great. We're almost through our original set of trees. We can start filling in some more space with oaks, though. And one thing I am going to do, just to make sure we're always keeping these beavers busy, let's add some extra storage specifically for logs. And on the same token, I think we should add something for planks. Because you notice here, we're full on planks all the time. I could put in a large pile. I'm not going to do that just yet. Because the worry I have is that they're just going to deplete all of our logs making planks. So for now, since we don't have like giant need for a massive number of these things, I'm just going to create one of them over here. And with a day and a half to spare, we did finish our dam. So this is still letting water flow through because we can't control the height of it, but that should be good enough to retain some of it. Now, my understanding is right now there is nowhere else for this water to go until one of those bombs goes off, which I'm still not seeing. They're still dormant, but that is a disaster we're going to have to keep an eye out for. Also, this water looks, now that I look at this, doesn't look fully red. What is this water coming from? Oh, look at this. We do have another set of water sources over here underground. So if we could get somewhere over here or some way to potentially clog up this, like what is this? This is a bad water source pushing water into these pipes. Okay, that's a good to know for expanding. We basically have a second pipe network all the way through here. So if we could clog up some of this, we could reclaim this pipe network for another good water source. And where is it flowing? Oh, it's coming up here and then off the edge of the map. This is a really interesting map. I really love all the pipe work that they added in here. Like at the beginning of the game, we're not doing a whole lot right now, but as things progress, there's some fun stuff we could do here. A few things that are next for me. I would like to start growing our population. And with the folktale, that's not going to happen until we have more homes. Second thing is I see we've got this poor little beaver. He's got a broken tooth. Why don't we do something about that? That's something one of our well-being buildings should be able to resolve that. Let's throw in a tooth grindstone in this horrible looking mess that I've made for myself over here. We'll throw in right by downtown. But as I was saying, I would like to do something about that housing situation. Eventually, I will want to go 3D for a lot of these things. And to do that, we will eventually need to unlock platforms and stairs. Yeah, we're still broke at the moment, so I don't really have a lot of great options for going up. We're just going to do this for now. We'll have some space maybe for a staircase there. I can build on top of it later. But with 3 homes, that should bring us ideally up to about 15 population. So just take baby steps in growing it. That is one of the big failures I see that you can run into, or one of the big problems, is if you boost your population way too fast, you end up crashing and burning because you haven't had enough time to bring up all your other production along with it. So you're going to run out of water, you're going to run out of food. So just like baby steps in the beginning. So our first drought, let's see what we've got. 2 days. Well, this is going to be pretty easy. Oh, I can already see our dam worked beautifully. You can see we're retaining some water. This is probably rapidly draining off the edge of the map, so this is going to go bad pretty soon. So with only a 2-day drought, this is not a threat, but I can see this is going to rapidly become a problem. By the nature of there not being any upriver, there isn't anything really nice that we can do here when longer droughts hit, right? Like normally the easiest way to solve this in a game would be to go upriver and dam it off. And then we could just use that dam and release water as the game progresses to fill up our pool. But the problem is with this, as soon as we get a longer drought, things are not going to be very good. Like we're going to run out of 1 height water very quickly. Unless any of this is populated with good water, which it is not. This is a trap eventually waiting for us. The only thing I see is this little cave here, which looks like it connects back with the water pipe. So this makes me think, I wonder if there's some play. I mean, the name of this map is Pressure. Maybe there is some trick involving pressure involved here. So if you recall, like communicating vessels, the water in all of these connected caves should be rising at the same height at the same time. Wherever it's going to get the outlet first, that's where the water is going to be let out. Is this where the highest point in this cave network? And if it wasn't, like let's say that I were to put like a little tiny lip here of levees, like around the border of this. Is there enough pressure in this pipe that it would continue higher? If so, that's a way of us working around this limitation, right? Like then we could start building this higher. We could build a lip in here and build a dam in the middle of our lake. This is the only way water from this cave network is getting out. So in theory, we could just build a dam in the middle here as high as we want until we basically reach the height of the next outlet. And I can see right here already, this is probably the height of the next outlet. Bam. So if we built a dam up to that level, we would actually redirect the water from here upriver, and we would reclaim all of this land. Very tricky. That's going to be our goal. We'll probably have a few droughts that we can get through at this height, but in order to do that, we're going to need a couple things. We're going to need stairs, because we're going to need to get stairs down here to work with. And we're going to need levees, because we're going to need to build levees around this somehow. So that's going to be our 2 things that we're going to progress with next for science. We got our stairs and probably our platforms. Platforms will need to come up soon too. Okay, that gives us a plan. Next thing, let's get access to these pine trees over here. They'll at least keep our economy going because we are just about to cut down our last tree. So let's do this. We're going to cut through there. We're going to cut down those trees that we just cleared. I'm going to use some stairs up and down. We'll get a wet fur bonus from our beavers when they cross there. And we will build an extra set of lumberjacks over here to keep the party going. And the other thing, I'm noticing it is taking this guy a long time to plant these trees. So I'm going to do double duty with the foresters, I think. As we eventually pull this out, once we get over here, I'm going to put in a second forester just to split the load between those 2 sides. And that first drought just ended, and as I predicted, not too much trouble. But let's take a look at the water. You can see with the dams aren't great because they already start at, say, 0.6 height, which would be right around here. But we did use maybe at least a half of that water supply at the time. Based on that estimate, I'm giving us maybe like a 5-day drought is when we'd probably run out of water, would be my guess. Especially if we increase our population and start pumping more water out, that could be a problem. Now, I do notice we are in a little bit of a tricky situation here. You'll notice that I need stairs to get back up here so that they can start logging. But I am short 1 log. They need 1 more log to finish these stairs. And there are no more trees to cut. So we're 1 tree short. Oh, look at this. We got We're lucky. We got one tree left over here that I never told them to chop down. If you chop that down, you can make stairs, and you can chop down all these other trees. Otherwise, we'd have to go all the long way around, and I'd have to have people break down these brambles. There we go. Okay, so we've got these lumberjacks over here. They can be paused because they can't do anything, and they can be transferred over here. Now, we still have a relatively low population, so I'm going to do a little bit of this roll juggling here. We're full of planks, so I don't need you running or you working on planks anymore. You can go back to the fields and continue stockpiling carrots. So we are not at max there yet. And if we end up with anybody else free, they are going to go over here to the forester. Oh, and before I forget, I didn't tell you guys to cut anything, so you're just kind of sitting there. Yeah, cut all that stuff, please. And in this capacity, I am seeing that we are running short of beavers a lot. So I'm going to continue our trend of building more homes. I don't want to spend a lot of our precious planks just yet, so I'm going to continue with homes being down on the ground floor. Like I said, I'm trying to not get too attached to anything that you see here, because I know I'm going to have to rearrange this and tear it out later. So the couple of things that I'm eyeing right now in terms of this colony is I do want to get moving on this construction for additional water. So that is going to take levees, which thankfully just take logs, so no problem there. The other thing I'm thinking about is water. So as I said, this water is eventually going to deplete when we hit a 5-day drought. One of the ways that I can prolong that water lasting is by not using our water pumps during that time. And so the only way that I could do that is by living off of our short-term storage. And small tanks, I hate to say it, they're kind of trash. I do not like using them. They barely hold anything. I love to go over to medium tanks relatively quick if I can manage it. So those would be the next things that I would start eyeing, is moving over to a medium tank. So that gives me kind of two goals. I want to unlock levees so I can start on the construction, and I want to work my way towards a medium tank, which is going to require gears and a lot of power, which we do not have. Power wheels were like a really short-term option to get things going, but they only produce 50 power. And if I look over to the gear production building, that requires 120 horsepower. So at 120 horsepower, we would need 3 power wheels, which is pretty awful. So I'm trying to think of ways that we could switch to going back to water power. And if when I design the storage in the middle, if I could do that at the same time. So my first thought is there any way that we can narrow the river? Because the more narrow a river is, it forces the water to go through a tighter channel and it goes faster. And you can see that visually right here, especially if I turn off things. You notice that this water right here in this area, it's kind of lazy. It's a very wide river. But if you look here, it's moving much faster. So as we build this dam, if I were to help build a structure that narrowed things, that would let me build power basically there. This thing only takes 2 wide, so if I could narrow the outlet of whatever it is that I build here to 2 wide, that would give us a good power supply. Yeah, I like that. Especially if I could do it over here on this side. This could be like our industrial zone. In fact, we could even start planning some of that right now. So for example, if we started something like this. All right, that narrows that water to go through this channel. This will take a good chunk of our logs, but that's going to force all of this to go very quick. And just for comparison, so we know going in, previously this is 83 horsepower. So I'm going to see how much horsepower this will get once we finish building it. Look at that. With that narrowing, that gives us 177 horsepower. So already a big boost, right? If we just tack this over here, less than half of that. So I'll count that as money well spent. Now, let's get back to maybe building around here. Ideally, if we built this it looks like 4 high or 5 high, and that's going to cause it to start being redirected over here. So that is one way. We could either make this wide, which is going to take a lot of logs, or we could immediately go straight for vertical. So something like this. Both of them are going to take a long time. So for example, if we did this, actually we'd have to do this. That is going to start redirecting water up here. We are dirt broke. We can't afford that. So I think for now, we are just going to go wide, and we're going to work our way up to that height. Oh, and I see I've got somebody who's being lazy because I never told them to plant anything. Get in there and start planting stuff. In fact, you can also have a nice place to store things, because I'm expecting this to be an area where we'll work out of. So I'm going to start building this pretty wide. Let's go 3 from each side. We're going to get a nice big square around it. And then eventually this is going to still be the only outflow over here for that stuff to come out. And thankfully we've got an access point over here. Let's build a few roads around, and we can give an access point over here. And maybe we can give a nice little shortcut over here as well. This is going to be a really long-term investment for us. So I expect this is going to be something that's going to be happening in the background, and we're not going to see the outcome for a while. What I would love is to have access to sluice gates to put at the bottom. So as we get to the second layer, I might install some of these regular floodgates up there. But we'll worry about that when we get to it. As the beavers work on that, though, I want to check how soon until we get some of these trees from our oaks that we added. Well, we're 62% of the way, so we still got a ways to go. And we're going to go bankrupt on logs soon. We are getting more planted, so that's not too bad, but we do have to wait this one out. So at this point, we are a little bit stalled out until we have some trees coming in. I think what my priorities would be is I would set all of this dam to be relatively low priority. And next on my list is really going to be going back to those medium tanks. And to do that, we're going to need gears, we need power, in which case I think we should start putting down some of those water wheels. Starting with one, that would be enough to power our gear house. So at least for now, let's go ahead and do that. Let's queue up one gear workshop, which I think we could place here. And we can plan on having basically a run of buildings down this way for manufacturing related work. And we could plan on a very small warehouse over here containing gears. And again, the whole point of these gears is all going over to our eventual storage of medium tanks. So I'll proactively get that unlocked as well, even though we can't make use of it. And the whole reason I'm trying to rush for this is a medium tank is worth 10 of these small tanks. It's going to go a long way to having more water security for our colony. And once it's in, I'm going to probably boost our population up again. And here comes drought number 2. And we're up to 3 days. So we're up from, I think the first one was 2 days, up to 3 days. So again, this one shouldn't cause us any trouble. But you can see how it's slowly getting longer. So it's good to have a plan for what we're going to do. So again, we're going to tackle this from 2 directions. We're going to have that extra larger tank. And ideally, by the time we get to 5 days, we're going to have some larger storage here with the dam. And that we are in a bit of a waiting game. The only other thing I think we could potentially do is start pulling out some of these thorns to make room for more planting area. Now, thorns are new to the game in this release. I haven't messed with them. But the thing that has me worried is that there is a very high chance of injury involved. So that makes me worried that we would actually need a medical bed to put beavers in after the fact. And we don't have that unlocked yet. That's why you see these here. I haven't pulled them out until maybe we have enough for one medical bed that I could risk it. Especially that's why I went through the trouble of making these stairs instead of working my way around. But it would be nice, especially as we get all these trees planted in, to tear these out and just continue using all of this for logging. All that said, I'm going to give these beavers a couple of days to cook. Our drought's going to end pretty quick. We're not in any threat. I'd like those gears to be produced, and I would love to see some of those first set of oak trees grow. Let's give just a little tiny time lapse and see what these guys get up to. A couple of uneventful days, and we've got our first set of trees coming in. So that is perfect because our entire economy is stalled out until we have more logs coming in. The other thing you'll notice is we've got injured beavers. Even though I didn't start cutting down the thorns, what did happen is the gear workshop opened up and it has a medium chance of injury. So a bunch of beavers went in there, did some jobs to make 13 gears, and got themselves injured. I think that is going to force our hand. We do need to get a medical bed. It takes planks and logs, and I will throw in, let's say 2 of those back in this corner over there. The other thing I'm going to do is I could probably get a beaver back from running on this wheel if I relocate our lumber mill over to our work site over here. That'll keep that nice and close, and we could also create a temporary storage over here for those planks. And in terms of power, I think this takes 120 and this one takes 50. So at 174, that one wheel should power both of those. I'm also noticing we've got some beavers that aren't doing anything. I think a good background task when we don't have anything else for them to do would be to start resorting to research. We can always use that in this game. Now, I hate building on green terrain because green terrain is a limited resource in here. And you can see I put all this stuff in here knowing it's not going to be there long term. But what we could do is start working our way up this hill and starting to build some of our structures up here that don't need to use that valuable real estate. So we could build a staircase here, and I'm thinking we could throw in some extra inventor huts up in this area. Just make use of the population that's not doing anything else. And we'll just assign those like very low work priority. So the idea is that only when there's nothing else to do will beavers resort to working in these inventor huts. They're just background work that is available for them to do. I see that our other lumber mill finished, so we can go ahead and retire these, which will give us 1 excess beaver back, and that should allow us to open up the gear workshop again. In fact, now that we have beds, let's go ahead and tear those out. I can complete the road. We'll have logs coming in. We're going to start making some good progress on our center area here. Yeah, smash those thorns. We'll get through there. Man, these things take a lot of work to destroy. Look at that. He's been at that for a while, and he's only at 52%. These are a very rough obstacle to get through. One thing that we can do, though, is I think because we've had gears running in the background long enough, and we've got planks running, we should have enough to build our first medium tank for water. So let's rearrange a little bit of this if we can. I'm going to move this inventor hut out of the downtown area. I'm going to replace it with the medium tank here, because it's really nice and close to these. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these lumberjack fields and I'm going to move them out a bit. I'm going to tear out these 2 little trees that recently replanted, and this would give us future space for another pump. And up here, I'm just going to replace the inventor hunt I tore out with the backup over there. Quick rearranging, but that's going to help with space. The same idea, I'm going to start tearing out some of these that we're not using anymore. And I would like some extra space for more storage. It looks like we're almost full of carrots. So let's start building up an excess supply of carrots. And maybe I can start at this point stacking some of this stuff. We do have enough science that we could unlock a platform, throw a platform down there, maybe build something like this. So now we can start building storage on multiple levels up here. That's good. Our economy is really starting to recover at this point with those logs coming in. We've got our medium tanks being populated. I think at this point, I'm just going to try to concentrate on getting these levees in. Start stockpiling water. Only thing I can think of that would help to that end is maybe we can inch up our population again just a little bit. And the reason I'm thinking of doing that is if I get another 3 beavers in here, I could dedicate them all to builders. So I could increase the number of workers in our district, and that's going to help speed up the construction here. Yeah, at this point, let's just give them some time to work this out. We do have our 3rd drought coming in. I'm going to do a little spot check when that hits just to see how long it is. Yeah, there's the drought. And 5 days. Okay, so we jumped up there from 3 days. That was my original estimate of how long the water in this pool could last. This will be a test of whether that estimate was correct. But really, that means that our next season is the last one that we more or less have breathing room on. Now, we do have, thanks to our medium tank here, we do have some excess water that we've stored. We might be able to pause our pumping a little bit, just get a few more days out of this. So I'm going to have the beavers resort to this. And the whole reason I'm doing that is once the water runs out, then everything starts to die and our food supply dies. We do have food that is stockpiled, so we could probably do it. The big hiccup, though, is you have to replant your food if it dies from lack of water. So I would hate to run into that interruption. If we start running low on water in our tank, I can always restart the pumps. Now, we are making pretty good progress here. You can see the limiting factor really was getting logs. And now that we have log supplies coming in, that is speeding this up nicely. The other reason is going pretty quick is I don't have any tough building logistics to deal with the logs here. Beavers can build at their height and the height one above them. So that allows them to stand here and potentially build here. They can also walk around the perimeter and build anything they want. I expect things to slow down as we have to build our third layer though. We do have some extra builders here as well, so that's starting to speed things up. So hopefully we can get through this dry season, just make a little bit more progress. But I can see here on day 3, you notice it did get dry out here. So already our dam here is saving us a little bit. You know, another thing that we could do to just work out a little bit more time to build our bigger dam is, as I mentioned, there are other types of dams that we can work with. A floodgate. A floodgate would allow us to control the exact height that we let overflow. Let's say that we went here and I built 2 of these. I could dial in the height of these to be, say, 0.9. So again, the whole reason I'm doing this is, remember earlier in this episode, I measured how much water was here at the start. And really, because those dams, they only retain 0.6 height, we only start it here. And with those floodgates, because I can set what amount of water they let go, I can set basically the water to be starting here. So that what that would do is give us maybe an extra day or 2 of water in this supply, at least for the next drought when it comes up. And as you can see, this medium tank worked perfectly. We went all the way through that entire drought. We're ending in 0.3 days, and we only used about half of it. So we were able to keep all of this off. And our water, it looks like it is just about to dry up now. So we did manage to retain our crops. That was perfect. But it does also show that this is a temporary state. We do need to start improving our water situation pretty soon. And I'm also not forgetting about all these bombs, which includes this one, which is about to explode in 11 days, which would be disastrous for us because it would hit this, overflow, and go back in here. As our first thing that we should get rid of, we should probably destroy these blockages. Because if this detonates, this is under pressure, this is going to start flowing here. So we need these blockages really cleared up. Also, this is our test if my idea was correct. So my original idea was that this is under pressure and should continue to rise. So if that is correct, you'll notice that this part dried off. If that was correct, that this is under pressure, this should rise over the height of this levee. And when it does, it should spill back over to the side. So was my estimate correct? And is this whole project going to work? Yes. Okay, that makes me feel good about this plan. We are going to go in here, though, and we are going to start building the rest of this. And we should also start planning on building our third story. I'm also going to make a very expensive purchase this time, and I think I'm going to purchase triple floodgates. So I do plan on building this thing up quite high over time. So I'm going to plan on building this up. Say we'll build 2 of them. I think that should be enough flow to let water out here. That isn't expensive because it costs 500 science. We do have it though. That will allow me to just continuously build this higher. So I have the option of building another 2 layers before I have to do something about this. And let's also be proactive of starting to work on the second story of all of this stuff. So to do that, we're going to need access to some stairwell of some sort. So I'm going to build a stairwell to the side here that these beavers will be able to continue to use as we get higher and higher. And so I'm building multiple access points. The beavers can work in this construction from multiple angles. So this construction crew is going to start over here and work their way back, as well as here and work their way back. This construction crew is going to start here and over here. So that means I have the possibility of, 4 parallel work streams going. In the short term, though, what I would love to see is whether or not this is going to continue to rise under pressure as I seal it off. As you can see, I added the other triple floodgates. I've got them set to 0.85 height. So you can see I've got the control here. Ideally, it would have been better if they were actually down here, or I had a sluice gate down there. That will be the long-term plan. But I really want to see if these are going to cause the water in the center to continue to rise up. So you can see here, they're at 0.585 height. This is quickly going up, which proves what I thought before, that everything in here is under pressure. This is really clever. I think this was a really good map design, whoever came up with this. But with that, I think this is a good spot to stop this episode at, because we've got some big things to look forward to. I think next episode, I really want to start redirecting this water up here. So we'll have extra supply coming in and we can start building that up. And I am not forgetting this unstable core. We've got 4 days. So basically the start next episode, this thing is going to go, and we're going to have to see what that does. And I'm also betting, given the number of unstable cores in this game, that I can see that there's probably going to be another one that will be triggered soon after. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you've got a moment, consider liking and subscribing the video. I hope to catch you next time.